Hey guys, it's Vanessa. I'm here to do my next wrap-up. First thing that I have to wrap up for you guys is Ghosts by Raina Telgemeier. The story follows our main character, Kat, whose family is moving to a coastal town in California that's kind of cold and dreary because they're hoping that this colder climate is going to alleviate some of the pain that one of the daughters in this family faces with cystic fibrosis. Of course, at first, Kat does not want to move there. It's basically the girls getting to know this new area, exploring their new surroundings, meeting their neighbors, and learning more about their background and ancestry. The town is said to be full of ghosts, and the people in the town go all out to celebrate Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. So the majority of the themes here focus on family, and especially Kat's real fear of death, and what death means, how it's inevitable, how it's always a possibility, especially with her sister facing cystic fibrosis. I can definitely say I'm a fan of Raina Telgemeier. I think this is the second thing that I've read by her, and I want to make my way through all of her graphic novels. I think she writes really tender and charming characters. She's very sweet to her characters, and I really like that. I'm definitely here for stories about siblings, and especially stories about sisters. When I got into this book, I thought that magical realism would play some role in it, especially because of the importance of Day of the Dead in this story, but I thought that it leaned too much on the fantasy side and not as much on the magical realism side, so it kind of went a little bit more unbelievable in that way. For me, stories like this, I feel like I like them more grounded in real life. So I think that took a little bit away from me, the fact that the ghosts stopped being a metaphor. They were actually like real things in this book. But I would still recommend this as a great palate cleanser and something you can definitely get through in an hour. The second book that I want to talk about is Diary of a Tokyo Teen. This is an illustrated travelogue that the illustrator and writer put together. She's actually really young, which was fascinating for me to learn. She's 3 years younger than me. She actually self-published this, and then an actual imprint picked it up and put it together and released it. So this is a short little delightful travelogue of her going to Japan. It at first is her going by herself and staying with her grandparents, and then it's her family coming along as well for the end of the trip. So she gets to experience different parts of Tokyo. She does touristy things, she finds silly things to write about, and she definitely tries to touch on the family aspect of Japan and being with her grandmother. I can definitely see how she can improve. Between a lot of the pages, it was sometimes hard to transition, in my opinion. It was kind of like snapshots more than it was a story that flowed from beginning to end. And I also mentioned that it was short, and I kind of wish it had been a little bit more detailed. I wanted to know more about her grandmother, I wanted to know more about her family, and also about the things that she did while she was there. But I can totally see why that is the case. She was very young. This was her just doing it on her own for fun before it got picked up to be actually published. The next thing that I will talk about is Paper Girls Volume 3. I last wrapped up Volume 2 and said that I wanted to get to Volume 3 super fast because I enjoyed Volume 2 so much, but I'm sad to say Volume 3 did not live up to my expectations after Volume 2. I started thinking, you know, Volume 1 was just alright, Volume 2 was really good, that means Volume 3 we're gonna get some answers and things are gonna happen. And Volume 3 was kind of so-so for me. I think the series is starting to plateau for me a little bit. I don't quite know where it's going, and that's a tiny bit aggravating. In this volume, we see the girls continue their adventure, time traveling all over. It seems like we're in prehistoric times. The plot, I feel like, didn't really gel, and I didn't really care about the extraneous things that were happening that didn't deal specifically with the girls like talking to each other. I liked how the girls ended up in different groups and pairs throughout the graphic novels. You got to see the relationships continue to form between them, but I didn't really care for the plot. The next thing that I'll talk about is My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. This is a huge graphic novel. The style of this one is a lot different than graphic novels that I've read in years past, which I really enjoyed. I liked how different this one looked in comparison to others. There's definitely a genius in thinking up this and drawing it all out. I can't imagine how long it took to complete this from beginning to end. However, I have to say that my thoughts on this are a little bit mixed, and I still have not felt completely secure in my rating on Goodreads that I gave it. I'm honestly thinking it's a 2-star read for me, and I think that all goes to the story. I think this book, the art is fantastic, it is out of this world, it is captivating, it is different, but I think the story in here did not work for me at all. The story to me felt all over the place. It felt like Ferris was doing way too many things at once, and that sort of backfired. I kept thinking to myself, like, let me just keep reading. It's gonna get better. It's gonna make sense sooner or later. There's gonna be a flow starting. But I never really got there. I was confused a lot of the time. I felt like there were so many diversions and tangents that we were going on, subplots that were happening that you were like, what is the point of this and how is this adding to the bigger plot of us trying to figure out what happened to Anka? I think for some people, those tangents and diversions that I mentioned, to them make it feel like a tour de force, like this is a masterpiece, like so many things, so many moving parts are going on here that add to their experience. But for my experience, I felt like it actually detracted from it. If there had been a little bit more direction about where the story was going and what was actually important, what characters should I actually care about, what little subplots should I actually care about, I feel like that would have added to my experience a lot more. I just may be in the total minority here. I like a little bit more structure and a little bit more direction, and I care a lot more about the story than I do about the art at the end of the day. There's definitely people out there, they love the characters, but I didn't, and I honestly had troubles finishing this graphic novel, and I did not feel any real connection to anybody here. The mood was interesting, the tone was interesting, the art was interesting, but the characters in the story, no, sorry. This wrap-up was originally going to contain 7 things, but looking back at my footage, I ranted so much about the nonfiction that it made my footage about like 45 minutes long. We're just gonna cut it here. We're gonna leave it at 4 graphic novels, and then the next wrap-up video that I'll put up will be those 3 nonfiction books, and I think that'll be a lot better time-wise. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you've read any of these or want to read any of these, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.